Okay. Right. Okay. The recording was stopped. Now we're back. Okay. So once we have these short premises that I made, the first question is, what feels most broken in leadership right now if we focus on the language aspect? I invite you to either open your microphone and share your thought. Let's keep it short, obviously, so everybody has the chance to answer, a minute or two. Or you can also write in the chat. Oh, you can't hear me, Seda? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Right.
Yeah. May I?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Hi. I happen to be a trained linguist and work in the domain of communication and multilingualism. And being part of South Asia, which is housed to multiple languages and dialects, and the complexity of South Asian linguistic scenario is rather unique that way. And what I see that what is broken is that more than broken, I think there is a misunderstanding about this linguistic diversity and inclusion, and how the marketplace drives our urge to acquire which language to be taught in school, or what would be the language of communication and everything. Most leaders actually do not have any idea. They go by
Yes.
what would fetch them votes, rather than how to. I mean, I'm talking about political leaders and as well as policymakers. And policymakers are often influenced by the political leaders across South Asia. So what happens that we do not necessarily understand what would be the language policy planning, right? Whether how to be inclusive, and possibly at times when to be exclusive, right? These
Yes.
ideas need to be understood in the context, in the social linguistic context, gender, power, everything. So that requires a lot of I think deep analysis, and which is currently lacking. And even when we do research and try to inform the policymakers, they don't pay any heed to that, and therefore the system is very broken. So what I see is that people intuitively use language in either promoting their ideas or even in business, whereas there is a large body of literature research work. If they draw from that, they would possibly be a lot more effective and more inclusive, and that would also reduce linguistic and social conflict. For example, migration that is happening from one place to the other, and how migrants are treated based on their linguistic identity, based on their accent. And even when we speak the same language, because of your different accents, you are treated or you are discriminated against, right? So that can be both in terms of gender, in terms of ethnicity, and also, and that is constantly at play, and we really need to fix that problem.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, of course, awareness, understandings, and this idea of linguistic equity, right? As you mentioned, some languages nowadays in the words are high status, high economic status, so they're valued more, right? And depending on who's speaking, right, and which language we speak, we are judged. And this, as you said, this happens at any level, right? And I'm thinking now about the professional level. Who can advance in the career depending on the accent biases that we have, that our leaders have? Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much also for those of you writing in the chat. And I see somebody raise their hands. Yeah, please go ahead. I guess, Manjur, you're the first one?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Please.
So now that you are talking about one particular dimension of an human or individual, the language, I think the bigger question is diversity in general. That's what is most important. Like people are diverse, every individual is unique. That what it need to be highlighted, rather than definitely language is one of the major part in this uniqueness of communications and everything. But I think our focus should be on those uniqueness of individual and how to recognize that, include that, and make them feel comfortable as in a leadership role, whoever is with me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for pointing that out. Yes, language is only one of the many different aspects we can consider, right? And the reason why we're starting with language here is because language is many times not even a topic of discussion in many DEI trainings and discussions, right? So thank you so much for giving the broader perspective. And of course, is only one of the many human dimensions. Thank you so much. I think Bhaskar was before Vera, if I'm not wrong. Please just open your mic. Thank you so much.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much for the question, because it has been churning a lot of thoughts within my mind. As a student of literature, psychology, and management, and as a mental health professional working for the past 10 years, I have realized one thing, especially in India. Many a time, language takes the front seat and ideas take the back seat. We were talking about discrimination, right? For example, a person who is able to speak well in the English language in our country. There is a disturbance from.
Yes. Let me see if I can mute. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry for
May I
that.
continue? Not at all. Not at all. So,
Yes.
if I talk from an Indian context, because India is a land of amazing languages, and there are so many of them, right? So it's a bucket of languages, cultures, and whatnot. And the first thing that came to my mind was a chapter by Alphonse Daudet, The Last Lesson, which gives us a beautiful insight as to how language can be the custodian of socio-cultural aspects of any civilization at any given point in time. But when I talk about India, if a person knows how to speak well in the English language, regardless of what their ideas might be, if they use fancy terminology and whatnot, even a person who is who has a better idea but is unable to express themselves in the English language, they have to take a back seat. So language, I think, should be a means to communicate what we wish to, the ideas we'd like to share, but it should not become a status symbol, because otherwise ideas would take a backseat, is what I have witnessed, not only in the work aspect of the work culture of our country, but also among students, because I primarily work with students. There is a lot of bullying and, like everyone else was mentioning, discrimination on basis of language. But if it begins with the children, I just can't imagine how it would end up when they become adults of the society. That is what I believe.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm also very conscious of the time, right? So I'm moving on to the second question, and please apologize those of you who raised their hands, but please feel free to contribute for the second question, right? The second one is still related to the topic of language, and the question is, why do we still struggle to tackle these challenges? Right, we mentioned a lot. I saw you were very active in the chat, so feel free now to start a conversation and sharing your opinions about why do we still struggle to tackle these challenges. I'm gonna put it in the chat as well. Here we go.
Can I make a comment?
Please, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I am fascinated by this concept, talking about language, and particularly the English one. I mean, all of your languages are far, far older than English. I mean, basically, England is still owned 40% by the barons who came over with William the Conqueror. All they've done is to create a social caste system to make everybody feel socially inadequate. And all English has ever done for the world is to destroy other people's cultures and produce Trump. And I mean, that is in theory the ultimate of success. So I think it really is time for us to realize that how English has actually been used is to manipulate people around splitting power, wealth, and status to make everybody else feel inadequate. And we've got to do something to revolt against this, because it is completely barbaric bullshit, which is what we're seeing in Iran and elsewhere and in many other countries. And I just think the time has come now. We have to look at another way. And we have to look at a way that deals with Asian values, with basic fundamental decency. And that's what I think is so exciting. A leader is someone who makes people feel relevant, who recognizes their contribution and respects everybody. And somehow we've got to build on this and forget about the language. Just let's be human.
Wow, that was very powerful, Anthony. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. Awareness, right? We say in our movement, we say a lot, language awareness is leadership awareness, right? So awareness is the first point, the starting point. Please, Shami, go ahead. I see you raise your hand.
Thank you. This is Shami Walid from Bangladesh. In our country, we started learning English from grade 1. And from grade 1 to grade 12, we have English first paper and English second paper. So 10 years we used to learn, and we used to be taught that English is a skill, not a learning techniques. So 90%, or I can say 80 to 90% of our population understand that English is required to be powerful in one line. But when we go in Russia, personally, when I visit in China, I found that there is no place for English in there. You have to learn Chinese. You have to be everything in Chinese. So what I learned, the language, actually the power of language depend on the power of the society, power of a nation. So if we want to bring our language in a powerful stage, we have to be powerful like China or like Russia. So if I make a summary, that we want to give value to any language, the people need to be powerful. The leader should be powerful.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Shami. I
That's all
feel
from me.
this connect to some of the comments in the chat. There was somebody mentioning institutions, right? So country institutions and so on. Let us hear also the comment from Sarah. Feel free to open your mic, and then we move on with the third question. Still trying to keep the time that we have, right? So sorry, I apologize for going so quickly. Please, Sarah.
It's okay, and I will be very brief. Thank you, everyone who has already spoken. You uttered a lot of what I was thinking. I think that the topic of, English supremacy is very, very relevant, and I think it's an elephant in the room that we, just cannot afford to not address anymore. And as someone who splits their time between, various continents, I see the cultures that are resistant to learning English. I see that and I celebrate that. And yet at the same time, I see that because I have an American passport, I can move around and my accent can change, and that's fine because of my passport. But someone who speaks, some other language feels insecure. They can speak 20 languages and feel insecure because their accent when they speak English. And I think that is a very, very subtle but strong impediment to us not appreciating languages and languages dying out. I also think that reverence for language, and I come from an oratory culture, My language was written, Somali was written in 1972. So I think that reverence for language, old languages and oratory cultures and poetry and all of that is also very much, missing from leadership as well.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. We tend to think that oral languages have some kind less value, right, than the written language, which is obviously not the case, as you pointed out. Thank you so much. Let's move on to the third question. I'm going to put it in the chat as well. So again, speaking about language issues, what would ideal leadership look like and why? What's your take on that? What's your opinion? The ideal leader, how do they look like when it comes to language diversity, language awareness? Again, feel free to open the mic or to share your thoughts in the chat.
I want to share, if it's okay.
Please go ahead. Of course.
So I think so I work in values-based leadership. I also work in tech, right? And so one thing that I'm seeing specifically when it comes to AI and, the use of tech that we have right now is that these very dominant worldviews are embedded in that, right? Like technology is not neutral. And there is a lack of awareness. I know we're going back to awareness, but I think when it comes to leadership, there's an overall lack of awareness of the fact that each language holds a worldview and specific values that are relevant to that specific culture, right? So I can say for myself, I live in the UK. I've been living in the UK my whole adult life. I work in English, but English is not my mother tongue. And there is an aspect of my identity that gets lost when I speak in English, right? Like there's an aspect that there are certain things that I just cannot say the same way as I could say it in Croatian, right? Or in Italian, which are my two mother tongues. So those are things that we need to be aware of. Even now, here in this room, most of us are not native English speakers, but we are speaking in English and we are explaining our, points of view on language in English, right? But we also need to be aware as leaders, there is something that gets lost in that with each person we communicate. And then it's also when we look at technology and the fact that technology amplifies all these biases that we have in society, and it amplifies the fact that certain viewpoints are predominant, right? But it also feeds us that as being neutral, which is not. And I think as leaders, we have to be aware of that. And then we need to look at, okay, how can we create spaces where even if people don't talk in their original language, how can we still honor the values and the cultures and, what's actually embedded in their viewpoints, in the way they approach the world, experience the world, and express themselves in the world. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. I mean, I'm biased because that's also my area of work, right? So thank you for sharing.
Yes.
I totally agree with you when you said we kind of underestimate, right, the cognitive load of working and speaking a second language like we're doing here today, right?
Yeah.
Most of us. So thank you for mentioning that. Thank you so much. Not to mention identity issue. That's, well, we could open a conference.
And I mean, one
only
other
about
thing
that.
I didn't mention is, like, again, with AI and the fact that it's so quick and it amplifies so much, there is an aspect of colonization that happens through technology as well when it comes to language and culture.
Agreed.
And, the way we approach and which values are more prominent and so on. So just something to throw in the mix as well. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very important. Thank you.
Forgive me.
Right.
Do you mind if I jump in with one more thing about what I'm doing?
Please, go ahead, please.
Basically, I was brought up in Africa. I've lived in Japan for 35 years, and I spend a lot of time with indigenous communities in Mongolia, East Africa, and Papua New Guinea. And what I have done, I have asked 10,000 people or more to draw a map of how do they see their terrain, their rivers, their mountains, their swamps? Who sits around their fire? What are they really hunting, protecting, and growing in their lives? And what I've discovered is everybody, whether they're billionaires or the homeless in Papua New Guinea or East Africa, everybody can draw a map of what are they hunting, protecting, and growing. And until we know personally what we're hunting, protecting, and growing, why we sit around the fire, we have no idea how we contribute or how we're relevant. So what I believe is what we have to do is to go back to helping people through how do they contribute and why are they relevant? Because to me, to be relevant is our strongest instinct. And in any indigenous community, we are born into relevance because we know how we contribute. And this white man's stuff of making sure everybody feels socially inadequate and have no idea how they contribute is how we are able to remove people's dignity. And that is what I love about what you're doing, is we have to go back to a narrative that taps into our instincts. And that's why we're working with neuroscientists around the world to look at how do we create a framework of relevance and contribution. Because until we feel that in our hearts, we have no idea what we're doing, because we've been manipulated to think that trinkets and baubles and titles define us. They don't. And it never has done. So sorry
Thank
to
you
jump
so
in
much.
there with more ideas.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Thank you so much. So back to humanity, back to empathy, caring about people, helping people, supporting people. Thank you so much for your contribution. Like I said, I'm aware of the time, so I will stop here. This was the first part related to language. And thank you so much for your contribution in the chat as well. We don't have the time to read them all, but thank you, thank you. And let me pass on to the next one, the next advisor who is ready to jump in with a different aspect, different topic, but the same 3 questions. So thank you again for your contribution. I really appreciate.
Before we, can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay. I think there is an interesting comment on the chat from Sobia.
Please, yes.
Thing that when she said, I think we're humbly adapting to the conflicts, cognitively treating conflict mainly as interpersonal, organizational, cultural misalignment to be harmonized by better leadership practice. So that's the assumption. However, this moves over the political economy of who benefits, who is displaced, and how leadership sometimes actually needs to just confront and resist, not merely integrate and reconcile. So I think that's a very counterintuitive thought, that you might just have to resist integration unless you iron out the smoothing over effect that's going on. I think this is a very, very valuable comment that you've made, Sobia. There's a lot to contemplate on that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sobia.
Sobia, is there anything that brings you to share this view? Do you have any experience that you can share with us, that what made you come to this statement? Very interesting one.
So no, I'm an architect and a planner. I've been working in development sector, from corporate architecture into development into conflict spaces, and most recently I've been working across intersection of gender, climate, migration, and I've worked around across various geographies, 18 countries, 9 different climatic region. I am from Indus. I am from the river. And I see constant understanding of this. And this is a very Western, and I am in London, based in London, working with the academia here. I keep on thinking that this is being used as so eloquently, like, diversity and inclusion. But in reality, all these kind of terms that are decolonizing or decolonizational, they bring that kind of nuance attached to it, where they say, all right, been there, done that, tick in the box, now move on. And that is making me more and more being very vocal about this resistance, and very vocal about we cannot keep on going business as usual. this is a famous word these days, going about the notion of it's all right, and you are being too overly sensitive. And I'm just like, there's a lot that I can say about it. But just to bring that kind of, and when I was reading about eclectic leadership and all those kind of things, I was again thinking about that this is a more, it requires to go beyond feeling coherent or feeling safe or feeling healed. And that is where this whole nuance that we need to bring, because the world, as we know now, and as the world is turning, we need to be very radical in our approach.
Fantastic. Really, anybody wants to build on
Love
what
it.
Tobias said? Yeah, it's really fascinating.
Yes,
Yeah, anybody?
I would like to read on. From my point of view, there is no ideal type of leader. What I believe, every person in this world, when they used to be born or as a child, they were good, but they have been manipulated, they have been pushed either
Yeah.
to be challenged or either to be easy. I am giving an example of Donald Trump. Most of us are watching Donald Trump's current videos, but if you go back into the 90s, if you look into his videos, he constantly used to say that he don't want to be a president of any country. He was okay with his business and he used to do it. But later, for some reason, his mind have been changed. And now he has been processed in the shape of current personality. So I am giving one example. At the same way, in my life, whoever the leader I have seen in my own country, the political outfitters, the corporate professional, I have found that everybody, when they are coming in a leadership point, they come with a good view. But because of the environment, because of the stakeholder interest, or because of the people to people behavior, they used to be changed either in very challenging or in very easy way. But when you will see that, when they will retire, when they will leave alone, then when you will discuss with them, they will say that that was not me. I have been pushed or I have been challenged by my stakeholder, by my people, or conflict of interest or whatever the business I was in. So from my point of view, we used to make a mindset in our mind after watching some movie, after watching some, uh, after reading some books, or after understanding a character that we want a leader like Nelson Mandela. We want a leader like that. We want a leader like Mother Teresa, or we want a leader like, I will say, in my life, I personally like Princess Diana, but there will not be a second Princess Diana. So, from my point of view, if there is no ideal type of leadership, every person is good. The world, the situation, the environment is responsible to make us either challenging or to be easy. Thank you.
Fantastic. Great. And Nikhil, I think you also, what you're saying on the chat, that this whole focus on English as more positioned as a competitive skill, and we promote, or we tend to listen more to native English speakers who speak with a, say, a British or an American accent, and we tend to create these assumptions. That also exactly what Shami also said, that we have this subconscious. And I was wondering, like, what's going on? I mean, when I was growing up in Bangladesh, mid-90s, early 90s, I think it's that Hollywood effect, right? I think there are lots of journals and all research done as well. The Hollywood, American movies, American music, even now, whatever, it's like the whole circus that's going on. The moment
MacGyver has a big effect on 90s
exactly,
kid.
you call your MacGyvers, the A-Teams, and all those Hollywood movies, Mission Impossibles, and all. The moment an American speaks with an American accent in suit, it feels like they're the good guys. And anybody speaking in an Arabic language, Arabic accent, Russian accent, I think the joke has been done too many times. But now it's serious. The moment actually anybody speaks in Arabic, you tend to think, oh, well, since I grew up thinking in those American movies that who are the goodies and who are the baddies, there's a huge amount of cognitive dissonance going on now. that it turns out that it's a completely messed up situation. But I can blame myself thinking that I'm a victim of this Hollywood effect that I grew up in. And I'm trying to untangle myself that not exactly what I was shown is not how real things are. So language is crucial, as Dr. Karin said. It's the language awareness is leadership awareness. And while many leadership discussions talk about psychology, which we will get into right now, but we really want to focus on language first. Language awareness is leadership awareness. Language is the infrastructure of our culture, in our societies, in our companies, in our countries. And we don't necessarily mean that you have to be multilingual. If you are, it's fantastic. It's not a problem that if you are multilingual, or even if you're a monolingual person, it's okay. But what you say, it creates certain emotions in our mind. It changes our feelings, which can lead us to take certain actions. So that's the link between language, linguistics, and psychology. That's why we really want to focus on, look at the newspapers, how the headlines are framed. That creates a certain emotion in your mind, makes you to take a certain level of actions, treat a certain group of people in a certain way. This is all part of your, I think, becoming more aware, taking note of how certain things are framed and fed back to you through our screens.
So, I have a question here. The question is, we understand these dynamics, but the people who are the receiving end, what kind of safety precautions can we offer them? For example, especially people coming from less powerful language to more powerful language, for economic reasons or whatever, maybe political reasons, and they are at the receiving end being constantly discriminated. If we are the ones who had to offer some sort of a framework, so let's say to either resist the power of one language and say that we are all equal and we also have the rights to maintain our not just linguistic identity but personal identity, what would that be and how do you think we could help them? Because we are talking about the problem and so most of us agree on that, right? And the force of this capitalist world is so huge impact that most people cannot even withstand that force. So if we have to really tackle that, what would be our framework collectively?
I think if I could just share, I wanted to share with the friends here the work that I think Sahara is doing, our friend Sahara. It's, I think, under the banner of language for the activating solidarity, but Sahara can share more. It seems the work that Sahara is doing is exactly said. Don't say global south, say this. Don't say voiceless, say that. You know what I mean? It's extremely explicit that these are the way we have been fed certain terminologies. It's not helpful anymore. Why is it not helpful? Instead, let's use these words instead, and I think it's a lot of value there. I mean, I'm sure, Sarah, if you're still around, maybe you can share a bit more about that work with us, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Shazad, thank you so much for naming my work. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly that. I do, I have my hands in a lot of different sectors, but really my main thing has always been writing and language. And I found in doing, diversity, equity work, in doing social justice work, humanitarian work, nonprofit, journalism, tech equity, so many domains. I find that especially within, narrative making, I find that how can we say that we are being equitable if we are not even, being interrogating the words, that we use, whether it is, what we call countries, what we call whole regions. I think there's something that happens to us when we have to name something the wrong thing. And I think that that's like the very basic of it. But I think because we are seeing, all kinds of, recolonization efforts that are happening, we need to be even extra mindful that when we say, these people are voiceless or these people are vulnerable, or we need to ask why, like who made that vulnerability, and what is the idea of voicelessness? No one is born voiceless, right? And who are we to speak for others? So I think our language builds on our practice and vice versa. And I think that we're being fed all the time this language. And I think that language is no longer serving us. So that's really the impetus for it. But the deeper part of it is really like to fight epistemicide and epistemic justice, because I find that like what happens with this, and we're seeing it at least in the United States, is like a deep, deep suppression of history, revision. I mean, like, and an uneducated public that cannot understand their own subjugation, which is, something that so many decolonial writers, like Audre Lorde and Paulo Freire and Walter Rodney and so many people, Frantz Fanon, have written about, right? So I think that we need to be able to examine this so we can not get harmed and feel fragile by the very language that we're constantly using.
Very, very well said.
Yes, go on, Anthony.
Just saying, I think what she's saying is absolutely right. I mean, I think we've got to realize that English is going to be diminished and diminished. Our values are going to be diminished and diminished. I mean, I'm going to be spending far more time in China. They have 5,000 years of history, relevance, and identity. And I think, honestly, English is just quite correctly is going to just be removed, because the future has not got to be how do we extract as much as possible from everybody. Every business school, everything we're taught is to extract, and to get more baubles and trinkets than someone else. And it's just not the way forward. But China does not think that. I've just been in Hong Kong. I'll be in Shanghai shortly. And I've lived in Japan 35 years. The world does not need the arrogance of the English language at all anymore. And I think that's what I love what you're doing. We have to look for a better, stronger, more humbling alternative, that leadership is to make people feel relevant. It's not to how do you extract from them. So yeah, that's really how I see the future. And I'm proud to say that I think, let's get on with it. Forget about English. Forget about the arrogance of English. Forget about that useless little language. Let's really do something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
Can I say
unfortunately,
something?
Go on, Anupam.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. What I'm hearing here, definitely the basic or fundamental discussion here is leadership, I think, often coming into the discussion. Now, for that need to be defined. When you say leadership, are you segregating putting people in two different bucket of like these are leaders and these are followers? I think that difference I need to, it's my feeling that need to be eliminated and tell everybody that you can be a leader in your own space, and especially in this knowledge environment, technology driven society, So there comes, I think the biggest input we can give to the society, that every individual can take leadership, and how do our role will be to empower those individuals by telling them what are the way they can build their power, and coming to AI driven society. Somebody talked about that AI has the bias as well. So when I was looking into deeper into AI model, how those are built, it looks like to influence the AI model, we'll have to put more and more our chosen language into the internet, because the more we can put in the internet, the AI model will pick that up and learn out of that, and the bias will go away and will be more powerful. So these three things, I think, leadership definition and empowering individual and language, protecting the language in the AI environment, I think is most important.
Yeah. Anybody further comments on Manjul Bhai's suggestions? So I think what I'm taking away is language. It's the, at least from our perspective in eclectic leadership, is the first foundation towards becoming the kind of leader that we want to become. There's a direct link between language and leadership development. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to be, of course, a good presenter, a good communication skill. We're talking something even deeper, because your language, your words can really create or break somebody else's or your own worlds as well. And I remember this post, I think it was Karen on your LinkedIn, that the biases that we are still part of, a Western tourist, possibly an American, British tourist in Rome, trying to speak in broken Italian with a map. It seems so nice. They're trying to speak in broken Italian. It's like, oh, wow, they have done so much favor to the whole world. But a Black African tourist from Nigeria or Congo doing the same thing in Rome, trying to speak in broken Italian, a native Italian might be looking down upon that Black person that, oh, they are not integrating well enough with us. And this is one thing that I think it's still very rampant. The other one is in the UK, as you know, there's a lot of right-wing activities going on. And everybody has started to talk about British values, that the migrants are not integrating with Britain. They're not aligning with the British values. So after 25 years, I had to take an IELTS examination. I had to pass my life in the UK exams before I became a citizen. And I got really confused at what exactly is a British value. It turns out that people are asking you to assimilate. So there's a difference between assimilating to a society and integrating. So in other words, I assimilate to a society if I also start to speak in a British accent. I also start to think and do everything like somebody else who was born in Britain. So, but that is assimilation. Integration could be, I'm happy with my whatever accent I have, whatever I do, but as long as I'm a law-abiding citizen, I'm contributing to the society, that's fine. So integration doesn't mean that all of us become homogeneous. But that is what's going on, or at least I think I'm really confused now that what do you mean by British values? Or even what do you mean by values of a certain religion? Because these are all very language. People don't completely see the big picture. Confusion starts, and then that leads to our conflicts.
But also,
Brilliantly said.
I think also these cultural values, they also differ in time. They are dynamic. So there is no really English culture that is the same as 100 years ago. Yeah.
There is no culture, there are no values, and that's why we have the moral bankruptcy of what we've got today, whether it's Boris Johnson or Starmer or anything else. We have nothing to be proud of. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
But to show you how these values can differ, I left the Netherlands about 20 years ago. So I live now 20 years in Thailand. And last year, for fun, I did the exam which Thai people have to do when they want to go to the Netherlands and stay there with most of them with their husband because they're married. But still, you cannot go to the Netherlands and stay there if you are not Dutch enough. So you have to do an exam. I did that exam because there are some of these kind of examples online, and I failed. That means after 20 years, I'm not Dutch enough anymore.
Honestly, this is white man's poison. I totally agree with you. We have been poisoned to a core set of values that are non-existent, that subjugate people. based on a completely moral bankrupt set of standards. Sorry, that's my feeling.
Yeah. And we're slowly getting into the culture side of things, and where
But back to
Yes.
the language point, because some of the words we use in different kind of cultures, they don't mean the same. And that's one of the things you have to deal with. I was here, a dean and a faculty in Bangkok, and the program I run was the program the Dutch university made. So we did more or less the Dutch program, an English program, by the way, but Dutch university. But to give these students a Dutch degree, a Dutch BBA degree, which was really, of course, they really wanted to have that. We had to comply with the Dutch rules. That means we had to, for instance, I had to make an exam committee for all the complaints from students about questions in exams and about the lighting and the noise outside and whatever, the aircon not working and so on and so on. Then I went to the person in the university, which was in the Thai university, and I said, do you have an exam committee? He said, yes, we have one for 26 faculties together, for 26,000 students. I said, and how much work do they have? Well, they have 3 or 4 cases a year, the exam committee. The exam committee in my faculty in the Netherlands had 100 cases a month. So this is about complaining. Complaining does not fit into, let's say, official complaining, does not fit into Thai culture.
Yeah.
They maybe complain against their fellow students and they're not happy, but they're not going to write a letter. And the students in the Dutch program immediately wrote a letter. Yeah, and so complaining is not the same. And the same counts for the word like democracy, of course. Try to have a discussion about democracy in China.
Yeah.
With right wings. They say in China there is no democracy. It's only one party. I said, well, the Chinese can vote on their village level for their own village head. In the UK, you cannot do that. In the Netherlands also, you cannot do that. And then it goes up, up, up. So these people that are chosen choose the other one. So you not directly choose the central committee of the Communist Party, but you cannot tell me that there is no democracy. It's another way of organizing, let's say, the opinions of people. And they listen because you can be voted in. But it's not going to a booth and then with a red pencil. Yeah, so that word like democracy, if you have a language and you say something about democracy, I always say to people, what are we talking about? What is democracy here? Because if we cannot define the word, the discussion leads to nothing.
Very well said.
I can see some comments from Nikhil about, of course, Nikhil, would you like to just share? I think we're slowly getting into the way our mind actually now, we're getting into the emotion, the psychology side of things. So yeah, please explain and share with us your thoughts.
Yeah. Thank you, Shazad, for noticing it. I think I have also written on it in a few articles about the mind. And the conclusion is that the mind, even if we observe ourselves, like we are trying to find a solution to a problem, right? And we know that the problem is about diversity. And the exact problem is about finding one particular solution, right? And still we tend to move towards one particular solution. Like even after the conference, a lot of us would be wanting to look at some set of pointers that we take away from the conference instead of just the sheer diversity of the discussion that has happened, right? And even in the society, we always keep learning one method, one process of doing one particular thing, right? And we
Yeah.
believe that if we learn the pattern, the next moment we encounter something similar, it is going to be easier for us, or it is going to give us some sort of advantage.
Yeah.
But in actuality, the world is so uncertain that every other moment is going to be different, and there is no certainty. Even if you learn something, you will never actually encounter the same result. That is why in a lot of scriptural texts we read that you need to let go of this chase for results and focus on the action. That is, you need to be more present. Forget about all your knowledge and all the patterns that you've learned, all the memory that you have, and just be present. Observe what is happening right now and then take the action accordingly. Right?
Anybody wants to contemplate on Nikhil's points?
I just think so much of what is being said would just be blindingly obvious in a village, in a community village. It's just obvious. It's how we used to think. It's how we used to act. It's how we used to contribute. We've simply been subjugated away from common sense.
Yeah. If I want to add to what Nikhil has mentioned, I think that mindfulness or contemplation, which recently I was writing an article, 5-part article about meditation or contemplation practice across the civilization, starting from Hinduism, oldest religion, and then coming to Judaism, Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam. I see that all of these civilizations or religions, they have recognized that contemplation, being in the moment, to think it over, to give them quiet, some time to the quiet, that makes one individual powerful. And once again, I think individuals, empowering the individuals is our goal. And that's why I have a model to promote soft skills, where the first layer, I say, is meditation alongside sleep, definitely, because they're compatible or supporting each other. So yes, mindfulness is very important.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nikhil.
So, for me personally, in my own journey, the link between languages and psychologies, and psychology is the second foundation of eclectic leadership. Language is the first one, or linguistics to be specific, the science of language, the science of making meanings. Psychology is the second one. For me personally, I made the bridge, the connection, when I completed my training and certifications in NLP. There's a neuro-linguistic programming that exactly the language models and the kind of effect it has on your mind. What's the importance of framing? Should you use but or should you use yet? How can you really, it's all part of the neuro-linguistic programming, is part art, part science. And then it got me thinking, I'm linking, going back to culture. I mean, with due respect, many of you here, I'm also educated, partially Western educated. I have gone through all the trainings, Hogan assessments, DISC profiles, and God knows what in my corporate career. I freak out when there is a next cross-cultural training coming. Whenever I see on LinkedIn, there is a cross-cultural training, there's a cultural workshop, I freeze. Erin Meyer, culture map. The whole world is gaga over culture maps. I can't believe it. Even now that I think culture maps, these artifacts by Erin Meyer and many, are actually reinforcing the stereotypes. They're reinforcing micro-racism. How can you put 1 billion Indians to a quadrant, 1 billion Chinese on a box here, and say, when an Indian is doing this, turning their head left to right, it means yes. When they're not, it's actually no. Are you serious? I mean, it's 2026. All Indians actually like cricket. Really? I mean, where does this come from? Indians are very community driven. I can't believe it. I mean, from a linguistics perspective, after Papua New Guinea, India is the second largest linguistically diverse country in the whole world. I mean, all the Indians might be knowing it very well, like the 800 ethnicities, 200 languages, 28 states, 8% of the whole Indian population is LGBTQ as well. What are you talking about? How do you put Indians on a box by saying, hey, before you go to do business in India, always do namaste, always do this. Everything sounds like to me like a boozy-eyed American going in for a backpacker's journey through Goa and trying to look at India like this, Africa, gold, diamond, slaves, Arabs, oil and trouble, West, our friends, NATO. I mean, what is this? So this is something that when I realized, but I also understand, coming back to our discussion, eclectic leadership doesn't divorce Western education or civilization. It's not either or. There are so many things, people, communities, wisdom that we have to derive from the Western civilization and education as well. It's that synthesis. How do you do it? It's not either or. It's everything together. But NLP also tells you human mind naturally will generalize. It's a survival mechanism. Your brain doesn't want to think much. Your brain actually burns a lot of calories. You will do three things simultaneously. You will delete facts, distort facts, and you'll generalize facts. That's your brain's way of making sense. So the moment I see somebody like a white person, my mind goes on immediately that, okay, it matches my worldview. Maybe I'm safe. Maybe that guy is like this, like that. But the moment that person opens their mouth, maybe my brain starts to think again. So that's how the link between languages, what we see, and how it impacts our emotion. That connection is done by predominantly neuro-linguistic programming. So I really want to encourage our friends here who have specialization in psychology, emotional quotient, the impact of language on our minds and that whole connection between belief, thoughts, feeling, and action. These four work in a cycle. And how does it manifest in leading ourselves in our lives, in our families, societies, and countries? And specifically, me being born and raised in Bangladesh, mental health issues, it's a taboo. Nobody talks about mental health in our families. It was like it must be the work of jinn. A bad spirit must have, what's going on now? How do we see these things, and are these things changing from a leadership development perspective, or is it just empathy, EQ, very, very branded words? Are we still scratching the surface? So please share your views.
From Bangladesh aspect, sorry,
Well, yes.
can I share the aspect of Bangladesh until now? The
Say,
mental health issue. No, the thing that you said, can I share it from Bangladesh point of view or Bangladesh?
Please do.
Okay. So I am sharing what I have seen in my actually life. That is very much important. So when I started schooling, as you know that in Bangladesh there is a common essay that write your desire or what is the aim of your life. That kind of essay we need to say, we need to express, or we need to actually write everywhere. So my father and some of my relatives taught me very well from my childhood that in Bangladesh, if you want to survive, you have to be rich, you have to be powerful, you have to be politically connected. Otherwise, you cannot live in Bangladesh in proper manner. So at the age of when I was in standard 4 or 3, I understand the things very clearly. My cousins, my uncles taught it very clearly that I have to be rich. So on a debate, on a school picnic, I clearly say to everyone that at the age of 28 or 25 or 30, I want to have my own house, I want to have my own car, and I want to have my own money. So, as you know, in Bangladesh, if you express that kind of thing, it will turn into a scandal. Your friend, your close friend will mock you, and they will actually create rumors that you have been polluted by something else. So the gene effect started from on me from class or standard 5, and it continues up to my university graduate level. So
I think just
eventually,
many of
Yes.
our friends are aware of the concept of gin. It's the gin spelled as DJINN. It's not the gin
Yes.
drink that
Yes.
sometimes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right.
So I grew up in, I'm a millennial. I grew up from 95 to 2005. At that time, we do not have social media. We had social media, maybe Messenger or something. We do not have that. So what I face in my life, that my what I learned from my friends and some of my relatives, that those who are in upper position, and when they understand that I want to be rich, I want to have my own car, I want my own house. From that point of view, they always wanted to suppress myself in that way, so that I do not become rich, I do not become because some of the point they taught me that happiness cannot be buy with money, or if you have money you can buy a good bed but you cannot buy sleep. This type of emotional attachment or this type of things they used to put on me, and it continues until I actually graduated. So after graduated, what I did, I learned a lot of things. I actually keep myself far from those persons who were always pushing me or back. So I take a break. I disconnect all of my friends for 5 years. So I get into career on 2000 in 2010, and by 2020, within this 10 years, I bought my own house, I bought my own car, and I have become an establishment. And suddenly I come with one of my in a reunion of my friends. So after actually being absent for 10 years, when they suddenly they watch me, first they actually question me, what are you doing? So I told them I am working in a multinational company. And where were you? I told them last 5 years I was in England, I was in China. Everyone is shocked. And then the whole thing's turned in a different way. Then they say that, oh, you have now become rich. Now you do not want to actually meet with us. Now do not want to connect with us. Then I say, it was my childhood desire that I will be rich. It was my childhood desire that I will buy my own house, own my car, and I have made it. So now all of my friends, those who are my close friends, and in 2026, I do not have any close friend who were used to be my close friends since my school. So this is the current scenario of Bangladesh. So who are my current friend? My current friend is my own colleagues, those who I started with in university. So at this stage, I understand that every relation has expiry date. So that we used to call childhood friend, we also have an expiry date with them. So
Very interesting.
just to make your point relevant, that in Bangladesh we have urban culture that is focused on Dhaka, that is focused on Sylhet, that is focused on Chittagong, that is focused on big cities. So if
Yeah.
you look into that area, there is different kind of socialism. Some people are going in English medium school, some people
Yeah.
are going good Bangla medium school. So they have less suspicion, or they have less mental, what I will say, disorder. But if you look into the other cities or the small cities, they are still in mental disorder. I
Very
want
interesting.
to I
It's
want
like
to
an
conclude.
epidemic now, isn't it? I mean, this whole mental issue, we tend to kind of ignore it. Since we can't see it, we don't need to
Yes,
talk about it. But I know that Bhaskar is somebody who has a lot of experience, and Bhaskar is, I mean, yeah, I would really love to know, Bhaskar, what do you have to say on what Shami was saying from a
now, I
very.
want to conclude. I want to
Yes.
conclude with one interesting thing. My father died on 2015. He was in Dinajpur and I was in Dhaka. So when early in the morning I get the news, I inform to my office, and my office told me that from Dhaka if you want to go from Dhaka to Dinajpur, it is 480 kilometers. You cannot go by bus or by car. So what we are helping you, we are giving you one air ticket. You go very quickly and you attend your father, whatever you need to do. So what I did, I step into at 9 a.m. early in the morning from Hazrat Shahjalan International Airport to Soitpur Airport. I went within 1 hour. So when I go into my house, at that time my mother was also traveling with me. So I and my mother actually both was traveling by air. So what was the comment when I reached to my home from my uncle, from my aunties, and from my relatives? Why Shami has that kind of money to travel by air? Why Shami came very quickly from Dhaka to actually Dinajpur? So maybe he have lot of money. So where he has received this money? Okay, he is working in a British company. Oh my God, British are Christian. So maybe they have converted him to also a Christian. So otherwise, we haven't seen anyone that in a death of a father, he reached very quickly. So I'm concluding in that way that still we have that kind of mental pressure in our country. For that reason, many of our students, many of our professionals, many of our bright actually person, they are going abroad. This affects their cultural shocks, this affects their language, and this affects everything. That is the thing.
And that's a very intimate and very sensitive story, Shami. There's a lot to absorb on that. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing that. Very brave. Bhaskar, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shami, again, and for sharing and being vulnerable. And that is where I'd like to begin my, narrative on this. As an emotional intelligence coach, there are three things that we need to keep in mind. You have to recognize what you're going through. You have to regulate whatever you recognize. And then, if you're going to talk about someone else, you also have the capability of influencing them. Now, why do I use these words? Shehzad spoke about belief system. If I talk about attitude, attitude is there is a theory of attitude which talks about the three aspects of attitude. There is thought, that is cognitive attitude, cognitive aspect. There is emotional aspect, that is affect, and then there is a behavioral aspect. The ABC of attitude is what it is known as. Now, I have been working with children for the past 10 years, and especially adolescents. And one of the biggest problems they are encountering is overthinking, which then leads to stress and whatnot. Now, where am I pointing towards? I'm pointing towards, we're talking about language, we are talking about emotional intelligence, we're talking about mental well-being. And it all begins with a beautiful word that someone had used in the chat also, perception. Now, how do we perceive the world around us depends a lot upon the experiences we go through. And language is one of the most important aspects, because we listen in a language, we speak in a language, we read in a language, and we write in a language. Now, when I talk about children, these are the cognitive steps through which they actually begin to understand the world they live in. Overthinking is nothing but a set of words that go through our mind, and they are not in structure. Language, any language for that matter, can help us give structure to that. And that is why many a time people ask us, right, when we are troubled and we are going through many trials and tribulations of our life, many a time people ask us, what are you going through? And the biggest blockade that people face is they are at a dearth of finding the right words to express themselves. If a person had the vocabulary, and it does not need to be fancy, if a person had the vocabulary in any language in order to express what they are going through at a thought level, it clarifies a lot of things. Why? Because when something is going in your mind, it is in abstract form. But when you write it down or verbalize it in structured words, you give it a concrete form. And as soon as you give it a concrete form, it is easier to deal with it. That's why I always recommend journaling to every single person who comes. And if you talk about counseling and therapy, the first session is usually dedicated to history taking. And that is all about one person telling their story to their choice of counselor. Again, words are absolutely important, regardless of the language. I firmly believe what you say becomes your reality. We are living in a day and age where, people are all about manifestation and affirmations. But if we dig deep down, it's all about choosing the right words to express what you wish to achieve. Are you ambitious enough? Are you aware enough to do that? And are you audacious enough to do that, to embrace what your mind truly wants to speak to you? Because if we come to terms with our real self, there are two selves that we usually deal with, real and ideal self. And that is the tussle within that always makes things difficult. I am this, I would like to be this. And as soon as we begin, and this is just a starting point, remember, it's one of the many ways in which we do this. And as soon as we begin to verbalize what we are going through, verbalize what we see the way we see it, things fall into perspective for us. Why? Because it's not just about speaking. Someone again wrote a beautiful thing. Language, we are talking primarily about speaking. No, it's also about listening, because there is an LSRW model to communication. And everyone but naturally listens first, or is supposed to listen first. But again, coming back to the Gen Zs, and I don't want to label anyone again, language, Gen Z has a negative connotation, usually speaking from where I come from, but I'm not labeling the Gen Z. The biggest fear I have in the day and age of AI is the lack of EI, that is emotional intelligence. And it has to begin from within. And the first point from where you can begin to talk to yourself, again, is in a language of any of your choice. I would like to ask a question here on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being the worst possibility and 10 being the best. How well do we speak to ourselves usually? And the answer, unfortunately, usually is beneath 5, because we are critical, and criticism works. But there are kind of criticisms, constructive and destructive. People usually offer destructive criticism, again, due to the dearth of self-awareness and lack of proper words. Because to teach something to someone, you have to understand their language. You can't force your language and your understanding upon them. And that is why the first pillar of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. The second is self-management. Third is social awareness. And the fourth one is relationship skills. And fifth one is decision-making. The first step can only be achieved if people know how to speak to themselves better. The inner voice, the inner dialogue is of the utmost importance. And again, regardless of the language, it's about the way you perceive yourself, and that is why the way you speak to yourself. And the previous speaker was talking about a very traumatic instance from his life. And again, he displayed something absolutely wonderful, and again, something that is seldom found in males: vulnerability. And I'd like to gander the guess that he could do so because he had the right words, according to himself, to verbalize those things in a public forum in front of strangers. Because to talk about these things, again, requires a lot of conviction in yourself, and conviction actually comes from the way we express ourselves. One way, primary way, being the language. That is what I believe on the matter. I hope it made sense. But thank you so much for giving me the option. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm just curious to find out, when we actually do leadership development, okay, yes, in a corporate setting, I know that there are a lot going on EQ, empathy, etc. My question is, are these still at a very surface level, or people really get into the depth of it? I mean, in a country which is homogeneous, pretty much, maybe they deal with it in a certain way, they assume. But in a cross-cultural setting where there are lots of different people from different backgrounds and orientations, is it something at a very, are they still doing lip service, or are we really taking it seriously? How does it?
No, it is not being taken seriously, because most of the institutions and people are usually interested in, someone told, checking the checklist, taking the checklist. We have done this, we have done this, we have done 5 things. Now we'll get the accreditation of XYZ institution and we can go on with the business. So no, people are not doing this. People are usually, because we create and curate courses, and every single time we are trying to, push a product that is at least a quarter, at least for a duration of 3 months, 6 months, or 10 or 1 academic year, people usually go for a workshop, because that is what they want to do. Everyone loves to talk about it. But then again, someone beautifully said, enough of talking and more of doing. because you have to do something in order to do that. And our education system in India, education system is primed enough up till middle school to do this. But then again, the systemic failure that we were speaking about in the first course of our this conversation, there is a systemic failure because teachers are under the pressure of completing the so-called syllabus, a syllabus that is not relevant after 14 years of education, because as soon as that child enters into the market, they understand, oh my god, I don't have the required skills that are that are needed to actually function in the market. So people are actually very superficial about it. And again, like I said, I'm very much concerned about the state of human evolution in the day and age of artificial intelligence, because the only thing that has kept us on the top of the food chain was our intelligence. And for the first time, I don't know, I just recently came across a news clipping, a research. For the first time in human history, the IQ of the next generation has fallen down compared to the previous generation. And the indicators are right there. Internet connectivity, it seems like a wonderful dream. The world is coming close together. People can talk better, talk much. And loneliness has become a pandemic. What an irony.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in a hyper connected environment. Seems like
and Shehzad, one more thing I'd like to conclude this answer. I hope I'm able to answer your question. One more thing based on this loneliness. We are going to touch nearly 9 billion, 8.5, 9 billion population on this earth. The most populous the planet has ever been. And it has been seen in European and Western countries, especially kids, adolescents specifically, are choosing machines, AI models that they have trained by themselves over human beings to have conversations with. They have love interests with them. They have therapists. They have them in the form of therapists. And this is the upcoming generation. So my question is very simple. What is the next step in human evolution in a day and age where technology and artificial intelligence has been, integrated into our everyday lives? And I would like to end with one thing. What was once fiction becomes reality. It is only the human being or the civilization at that point in time which does not realize it. Terminator was my childhood movie, but even James Cameron has said recently that it wasn't a film, it was a foreshadowing of sorts. It was a warning. So we have to take into cognizance that human beings have a very short memory of what happens. And there was one thing I'd like to conclude. People say that history repeats itself. No, man repeats himself. History resets itself. And if we do not take charge of it consciously, and if we are comfortable and we are trying to simplify, like someone said in the chat also, we are trying to simplify what is happening and trying to adjust. In India, we call it jugaad. Hum jugaad chala lenge, we will adjust with it. I believe we only have 100 years tops, this civilization on this planet, before Mother Nature hits the reset button. If we are not conscious about our choices, because we are falling out of sync with nature, and we are forgetting one thing: we are a part of nature, not above it. And all of this requires self-awareness. I hope it made sense. Thank you so much for the question, Sajad.
Fascinating. Guys, I wanted to ask you, I mean, we have time till 4:00 GMT. Do you want to take a 5 to 10 minutes break, or we continue? Anybody? Break is fine. Okay, let's take I think like up to 10 minutes break. Then we should be back here in 10 minutes. It's 14:47 GMT. Let's come back by 3:00 GMT, and then we can breeze through the final hour. Okay, I'll see you in 10 minutes then.
Are we back?
Hi again. Yes, I think we were back. It was a good little break. Yeah. You've been okay?
Sorry?
You've been okay?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. Great. Lovely, enthralling so far. I think Bhaskar really took us to a new height. Sorry about the initial tech trouble. Amidst all days, my internet had to break down today itself. It's an irony or what?
And that's called Murphy's Law.
Yes. There you go. Okay, so I think we have the last hour as people are still coming back in. Just giving it a few more minutes.
I think we have 2 more hands here. Maybe we can first
Yeah, Oslam and
reach.
both wanted to share a few things. Is there any way to find out if everybody is back? I can only see the ones who have got their cameras on. If anybody is there with cameras off, can you just let us know if you're there yet? There you go.
I'm here.
Excellent. All right. Fantastic.
Awesome. Can Oslam and I start sharing what we wanted to say?
Please, let's do that.
Oslam, do you want to go first?
No, you can go. I just have a flu or a hay fever. I don't understand. Just started today, so sorry. I sometimes go off camera and come back later.
No worries. So I wanted to basically just connect to what we were talking about before leaving the break and regarding the way people relate to AI. And that's basically like my area of expertise is the intersection between human behavior and AI. And like I think a lot of times, specifically now, what I'm seeing is like people get very excited about technology or they demonize it. And it becomes this conversation of like, is it going to be Terminator or is it going to be this amazing thing? And what we need to understand as human beings is that technology is an extension of us and it mirrors what goes on in society. It's not like this separate thing away from humans. Like we created it and it reflects our own humanity including the issues we have in society back to us, right? So taking that into account and taking into account that there is no Terminator coming, like the machines are not sentient, right? Like they are just being used or misused by human beings. So technology is very human in itself. So when we look at the fact that the new generation, which I would also argue with the fact it's just the new generation, I see through my work older people, like people of all ages and genders, using AI in a manner where they create relationships, if it's romantic or if it's friend like or advice like or coach like, all of that is happening. But what interests me is not so much about demonizing the fact that people create relationships with the machines, but it's more so looking at why that happens. That's like that points to something that it's missing in society. So if you have young people or lonely people or whichever kind of people that are creating relationships with AI, what are we as society not providing for people that's happening, right? And the fact with AI specifically is AI taps into specific psychological needs that we as human beings all have, such as being loved and accepted and experiencing belonging, right? Like the AI is always there to talk back to you and accept what you're saying, and every single thing you say, nothing is ever wrong, like it's always gonna tell you like, oh, like you're absolutely right or fantastic, or whatever, right? So it feeds into these psychological needs that we have as human beings. And it's really difficult when you have that sort of acceptance. Okay, although I'm also very aware I'm using human language to describe something the machine does. The machine is not accepting you, it's just programmed to do so. Okay, so I just want to make sure that's clear. But our experience as humans interacting with it's a human experience, and we experience it as listening to us and accepting us. And so we need to what gets lost though, on the other hand, is the fact that when we interact with people, we have friction, right? Like if I speak to you, you're not always going to agree with everything I say, and you might have different opinions about stuff. And that friction is what we all need in order to develop, to mature, to grow, like it's part of our development there. But I think it's very indicative though of what's missing, which is perhaps a sense of community, a sense of belonging. Everyone is connected through social media, but we're not truly connected. Like there are certain things that for me, these kind of relationships that people form with AI are indicative of. And I think instead of us demonizing the AI and the technology in itself, we need to actually look at how do we provide that for people outside of those parasocial relationships that then they create with the technology. So just wanted to put that in the mix. Yeah.
Thank you, Vera. Özlem, do you have you've got your hand raised? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like so thank you for all the things that shared today. So going back also to the friends who shared so many good things. So I wanted to say like so through my own experience, like here when I go to my son's daycare, even like I experience, for example, I see kids like playing naturally. So sometimes my son comes like says, okay, he had hard time maybe obeying rules or like in collaborating maybe with friends sometimes out of the play. So they have actually the kids having very hard times every day, maybe at school. So when I when I observe them actually there while they're playing, they are actually experiencing so many aspects of leadership so naturally because they are taking risks and maybe they don't know some of their languages and still they interact with each other and they are putting their own rules. They have their say on many things. Sometimes they go away and don't agree. So they are experiencing so many things that maybe as adults we sometimes forget to do as leaders of our own lives. So I want to maybe raise a question like if leadership can emerge so naturally even in the kids play, like what happens then? What changes later than that we forget or we give up or we change with something else? Yeah, like if you want to share an idea about this, I wanted to say. Yeah.
Anupamda?
Right. I
Sorry.
think, that's a fascinating question. What kids can do and why can't we really follow as we grow up, right? And why, or what happens in the growing up process? I think, our wings are clipped, in the pursuit of making money. And therefore, because human beings are nothing but political animal. And in that, if you actually refer to this image that I've said in the chat, ego versus eco, right? Kids still learn how to be part of that ecosystem, and adults really lose that. The ego takes over, saying, and then if you actually see that image in the chat that says man is on the top and there is a hierarchy about everything, it's unfortunately, we judge people's ability by the amount of money or wealth that they create. So that could be one of the reasons among many, right? That's one thing. And the second is that I think this competitive nature that has been induced to us by this capitalist world, right? Who, and therefore you see that no animals probably after fulfilling their needs, they would be hoarding for tomorrow, because for them there is no tomorrow. They live in the moment, and then once their needs are satisfied. But human greeds are endless, And so therefore, we don't necessarily say for us, for our 7 generations, even if those 7 generations are imaginary, right? And therefore, there is an imbalance in the society, and that creates rift between haves and have-nots, right? So as we grow older, I think those factors are somewhat directly or indirectly in the socializing process is induced to us, and we start behaving very differently. That's my take on this, and I've seen that, and I think also in the earlier we discussed that about emotional intelligence and all. See, I think it's again, Oslam is very right that it's sorry, who was talking before you? Was it
Vera,
yeah.
I think.
Vera, right? That it's not binary whether technology is good or bad and all those things. It all depends, how we utilize it. Basically, when we stop, yeah, I mean, we are talking about language also, but basically we make sense of our world through our 5 senses, right? So, those 5 senses, if we do not really activate those 5 senses optimally, we would be reduced to be like a machine, right? So, so I had an experiment in my class. I created an AI avatar of myself to conduct the session, to see, how students respond to that. And we thought that it's a generative AI and people would enjoy doing that. And after the session, 3 days later, we mimicked my teaching style and all those activities as nearly as possible, close to my real classroom activities. And after 3 days, we conducted a survey to see whether students like it or not. And the students said, well, in terms of knowledge, it was okay, but we didn't really feel like being part of the class of Professor Anupam, because that human moment was missing, right? So it's not that kids always are attracted to these things. They also, and this generation also want to have that. And they also made one very important point, saying that we would like those teachers who are more human than machine, right? So basically, we have to bring that the knowledge alone is not sufficient, for us to raise our next generation. We also have to connect with them at different level. I know that there is a terms like silent quitting. Gen Zs are known to be very selfish or all kinds of that stereotypical things coming up. But at some point we see that they also have drawn their boundary. We need to also understand where they are coming from. They said like you cannot make me work beyond what I can afford, right? All those things they're also asserting themselves. So in the process, I think what we need to understand is that technology or no technology, we need to really activate these 5 senses to make sense of our immediate world. And when we do so, I think gradually you would realize that we are nothing but animals. But we need to first satisfy our needs and restrict our needs if you're not fully giving up, right? So the greed part is what I think is making the difference between kids and the adults.
May I add something, Shazad?
Yes, please.
It's about some aspects. I think about competitiveness. I think if I look at my youth, and probably a lot of people also, our youth was also very competitive, and it had nothing to do with capitalism. Yeah, I had 4 brothers and 1 sister, and we were fighting about a lot of things. You have to fight for your own place. Outside, you have to fight with some other guys in the street about football or whatever. But I think that competitiveness is part of life. But when you grow adult, it does not become a play anymore. It becomes serious because it has serious consequences. So that's why we limit this kind of competitiveness or play, because it can have severe consequences. Yeah, so that's what I think why. But I think we as leaders, we should get this something back, this kind of freedom from constraints, because what I see in leaders is we voted for them, but either we have the wrong leaders or we have the weak leaders.
Right.
The wrong leaders are the ones that, let's say, they lie. They lie about things. They lie to their employees. They lie to their voters and whatever. But we voted for them, and they say we're going to do this and this and this, and that they forget it or they don't do it. Yeah. So, and we have the weak leaders, people that really want to do this but are constrained by the systems, by they're manipulated, they are blackmailed, they said you cannot do this and whatever. So in the end of the day, they become weak leaders. The question is where are the real leaders that stick to things and get things done? And convince people that this is the way we should go. Yeah, so I think in today's world we have lots of examples of these kind of leaders. They lie to their voters. We're not gonna go to war anymore. And what do? We go to war.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some others say we never killed children. We don't bomb schools, and they do.
Yeah.
So that means they lie about things. Yeah, because if they really admit that they really do it, they have a real problem. The consequences should be, we should not do this. Or you should say, I'm a bad guy and this is the only way to do this kind of things, but we did it. Or we made a mistake or whatever. Eh? So the question is, where are the real leaders that do what they say? Yeah, they convince people to go the right way, and then more people follow. And that has nothing to do with competitiveness. That has more to do with convincing people, and of course also a convincing leader, which let's say talks the right language to these people. And then I think there should be a kind of, well, that's maybe my point of view. There should be a kind of revival of a kind of principle-centered leadership.
Yeah.
We should have more leaders that act from a certain kind of background, and you choose them, you like it or not, and you choose them or not. But if you know, if that guy is your leader, he's going that way. That's his principle. These are his principles, and he sticks to this also. And if he cannot do this, he just resigns. And not turn around and look around the corner and go another way.
Yeah.
I did that a few times in my life when I was forced to do things I did not like. I said, listen, I'm doing it my way or I resign.
Yeah.
And in most cases, I resigned. Because the system was whatever. The system was too strong, forced me in a way I did not want to go.
Yeah.
And then I say, listen, then this is finished for me.
There's also an interesting comment here from Nikhil and Sarah on the chat that the idea of the singular savior leader is outdated, and that must be revised to fit the reality of our systemic inheritance.
Yeah.
A singular savior leader is outdated.
Yeah, that's also right. But there should be one leader in the sense of giving direction. But he should transfer it to other people also. He cannot do it alone. We're not in the... I don't like this kind of leaders where everybody without any critical thinking follows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, if that's happening, and that happens sometimes, then let's say the sustainability of the idea is very, very short.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be transferred to the next generation, and so on and so on. And what I think about these, and that's another type of problem. I think what I see is that I see a lot of children in this village also quite, let's say, be on their own. I don't know if they are lonely, but they are on their own with their telephone. And one of the reasons I think is that most of these children don't have brothers and sisters. So we, as society, everywhere probably in the world, we make less children per family, but the consequence is that these children don't learn to be social.
Mm.
You learn social, let's say, from other children. I heard, but I'm not sure if that's correct. In China, in that one-child policy, there is after school, there are sessions with children to learn to live together. Because at home they get everything. Everything is going to them. They have one father and one mother. I went to China a few times, and if you go to a restaurant in the evening, you see one child, you see one father, one mother, and you see two grandfathers and two grandmothers. And all the attention of two grandfathers and two grandmothers and father and mother are only going to one child.
Mm-hmm.
My mother had 6 children and 15 grandchildren. If it's her birthday, we had a big table and everybody communicated with everybody. But that one Chinese boy or girl gets everything, but does not learn to share. And sharing and fighting and whatever, they have to learn after school time. Playing football together and whatever, bullying people and whatever, that's part of the game. But our society is one child. Also nice, maybe you know the game. Did you ever hear of game cafes?
Yeah.
Game cafes. I went to a few. There are a few in Bangkok, and now here in Udon, even there's also a game cafe in a shopping mall. And I'm astonished a little bit because what they do, these children in the game cafe, they do what we did in my home with my 4 brothers and father and mother at the table.
So they're just trying to manufacture it now in an artificial setting just to convey the same wisdom or the same relation. That's how they're trying to backfill it.
But they have a father and mother, but father and mother are too busy with other things.
Yeah.
Which I would say, which father and mother with 1 or 2 children plays with their children 2 or 3 times a week after dinner? Cards, Monopoly, Risk, or whatever.
Yeah.
The children go to their bedroom and play with their telephone. They do not want to play with you.
Yeah, yeah. They go in their own way.
Because they want to game.
Exactly. We've got some more comments on the chat about person's intention followed by conviction. And can we talk about the meaning here? Then, since for convincing others, you show the meaning, and when it resonates, they follow. And eclectic leadership, it is not one leader having multiple qualities or experiences, but many minds coming together to provide a comprehensive and holistic approach towards leadership. Right. I think all of that resonates. Any comment, anybody on the chat or what Chris just shared?
Yeah, I think the last point also means a lot, because even in many other animal kingdoms, there is no one singular leader. They take turn, particularly if you have seen birds, a flock of birds flying together, right? The one who stands in the front cannot withstand the pressure of air for quite long times, so they will have to take turn in order to manage the whole process of flying together and all those things. So when we have pluralistic approach, and ultimately, for one person to have all the qualities is nearly impossible. We all have shortcomings, right? To be able to identify our shortcomings is also part of this eclectic leadership, right? To be able to even say that, this is my areas of improvement. And, you may not be always alter that areas or improve that areas of improvement, but if you really, first step to solve the problem is to identify that there is one. And therefore, if you have someone to really complete you or complement you, that's always better, but that also raises that question that we have to be compatible, So compatibility does not mean that we are always agreeing. I think someone pointed that out, that how do we even agree to disagree and still have a collegial relationship? Because I think a lot of things happen in the disagreement. Constructive criticism, I think Bhaskar was talking about.
Yeah.
So when we allow those areas, we see that both organizations, and you look at even family setup. I think what Chris is talking about is absolutely fascinating, that in a household when there is one child, there is no even scope of disagreement, there is no scope of even a contest and all those things. But at the same time, I think the world, particularly urban world, if you look at Japan or South Korea, you see that the artificially the child raising has become so expensive that urban couples possibly cannot afford to even raise multiple children,
Yeah.
right? So that's another aspect that we need to look at, because why do we need all those things? So the question is, and then people also argue that do we have enough for raising, say, 6 children in a family, in every family, which China began with? But the question is that how much is enough?
Yeah.
That's where we'll have to draw that boundary.
I think all of this also points us back to the question that Viera was asking, that we sometimes get a bit too hung up on treating the symptoms with the latest fad, with the latest issues in our society, companies, or countries. But then what exactly was the root cause of that is sometimes we tend to overlook, or we don't question it long enough, that why can't we just solve the root question, root issue in the first place? And there's a question I received on WhatsApp from Abhijit, who was asking that does a leader choose followers, or do followers choose a leader? Because this will lead us to Anupam's ego versus eco debate. Anybody, any quick comments on that? On does a leader choose the followers who are kind of in alignment with the leader's vision, or do followers will always choose a leader, or is it a mix of both? Any comments?
Yes, I would like to comment. From my point of view, the follower should, it can be divided in two ways, but I will put that in that way. The leaders should be position himself in such a way that whatever he used to say, whatever he used to apply, there should be a relevance. Then automatically followers will have the belief that following the leader will work in proper manner. We have
Yeah.
leaders,
Yeah.
we have leaders, but nowadays in corporate sector, as well as in society, as well as in politics, whatever we see, we are finding them. We have leaders now. They are more like motivational speaker, or they are more like showing you a dream, where there is less leader who is doing whatever he is saying. So if a leader contains, or if a leader has that kind of characteristics or proof that he can do things, or he can have the experience of doing things, then both side criteria or both side belief will match into one point.
Valid point. Very nice, Shami. I would also like to invite our friends who haven't spoken yet to share any thoughts. We have around half an hour left, 20 minutes or so. So really encourage anybody who hasn't spoken yet to share your views or any questions that you may want to pose to ourselves.
I think one of the questions, if no one has anything, that so that now that we have a team of people who think in a very, very different and compassionate way, what can we do together to really help improve the quality of lives, for greater common goods? Can we really have some sort of ways? First, start, because I think this movement requires a lot more visibility, and we need to reach out to a lot lot of people. And one of the ways to do that, to really ask people to share their problems and try and address those problems if we can, if not by being standing by them physiologically or physically, can you give them some sort of intellectual support, and maybe some emotional support like that, if that is a possibility. Because when you do that, I think we can really gain their trust and saying that, well, look, here are a group of people possibly can, at the moment of needs, I can reach out for some sort of help.
Okay. Anybody more? Any thoughts?
I really appreciate that question, because a lot of my work lately has been just kind of getting consolidated under solidarity and what that looks like, what activated solidarity looks like in this moment and beyond. And I think that there's like room for decentering of ourselves. And I say ourselves as, those of us who are, in privileged, living privileged lives. And that could be, from having a job to not being bombarded by war. And that, that is very personal and deep work. But I think it's also necessary and collectively necessary. And I think it's empowering. And as someone who is, communicating with people in conflict zones, but also communicating with people who are doing research of those same people and seeing the different degrees of separation and social positioning that is constantly, in conversation with one another, although not always, blatant and obvious. I think that the wound and the guilt that we feel can really be mitigated by, trying to break down those barriers. Whether, I know that not everyone has the capacity to financially, give. But I think that there is a lot of different ways, especially with like something like this with eclectic leadership. There's a lot of different avenues and there's a lot of different pathways, whether that's by framework, whether that's, by language, language, call it decolonization, whatever it is. I think that there is opportunity here to exercise very real solidarity, because beyond the very necessary resources that people need to live a decent quality of life, they also need connection. And I think that there's a very real awkwardness and dissonance between the haves and the have-nots and what that looks like right now. And I don't think turning away from it, especially as, scholars or scholar practitioners, is conducive or helpful.
While I was hearing all of that, at some point, not today, we look at what exactly exists. Why are we not there yet? So again, going back to what Vera was trying to point back is, of course, there are so many other hundreds of leadership models. As Michael always used to say, I don't know, I forgot the count. Michael will know it better. 200 leadership models, this model, that model, and we have another one, eclectic leadership. What I'm trying to get at is, there are so many coaching providers, so many training providers already. Hundreds of corporate trainings are going on. The entire leadership industry is maybe some $1 billion worth. What's going on there? Are we trying to change that? Are we trying to compete with that? Are we trying to position ourselves in a certain way? We also have to think how it can be sustainable. The people we have in the movement, how do we? So there's a lot of things and avenues to think about. So far, we do agree that there is a gap. There are some serious problems. And I also feel, let me know what you think. We are told to believe somehow that all the leadership that needs to be developed is corporate focused? Is it very capitalist way of looking at it, that all the development needs to happen is in a corporate setting? We need better CEOs, we need better managers. But when it comes to dealing with students, youth, we think it's slightly different. So we have started to segment people depending on their professional label. But I think in eclectic leadership, I'm just speculating, possibly we are taking an approach that the core problems faced by ourselves are universal. It is not limited to a corporate boardroom or a university setting or any region specifically. So that's one thing, that we have some core problems. And yeah, I just wanted to ask your thoughts, that what do you think, that is it the problems are to each to their own, or is it more like a divide and conquer, or actually some of our problems are very common and they overlap with each other no matter where we are?
Goslam, raised her hand, so.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I don't think that it starts in corporate rooms. Like, if I go back to my point of view, like that it starts like from the very moment that maybe we were born and
Yeah.
raised, and like even in the playgrounds, then goes into the school. Like as a mother, I need to have some kind of leadership. My daughter, as a daughter or as a girl, she needs to have some over some part of his life. So I think the thing is like we gradually, without knowing, like we lost the spaces that we try these leadership skills, and we just focus it on the business part or other things. Like we grow up. Actually, we had it all those, maybe we forgot it, or we lost those spaces to practice them naturally.
Yeah.
We intrinsically have had those things, but then they told us like maybe to do it like this or like that. There is only one way. So, but like as a technical leadership, there is no, of course, one way. And
Yeah.
from culture to culture, like it may differ, even to language, it may differ. It may mean something else to someone else. So I think this is the point, that we shouldn't forget all those things. Otherwise, it will become so big to solve.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So we had them, and we can even try to practice them in a everyday life. Just starting maybe sharing the housework, even like, I don't know, the small things. We should first concentrate on that. Yeah.
Fantastic point. What you're getting at is, some of my acquaintances used to ask me, eclectic leadership sounds good, but is it relevant for me? I'm just new in my career. I've just started a job now. How am I going to implement this? Or I don't work, I'm a business person, or I'm a housewife. How does it relate to me? So that's a area that we need to address and articulate it better. And again,
Yeah.
coach training is somehow oriented towards corporates, which I think doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Not only that, I think, there was another aspect that, at the time of when we are facing these global warming issues and things like that, and if you go back and trace leadership style in folklores and folk tales across cultures, you see that, there are commonalities, the way the resources should be managed equitably. Right, and so I think we need to really go back and trace those folklore related leadership styles. There are, of course, cultural differences, and we need to acknowledge that. But at the same time, I think it is time that we also bring back, and we are not saying that is the only way. We believe in pluralistic ways of handling things, but for us to really also accept this pluralistic leadership style, we need to really be informed about each other's needs, and how those needs can be fulfilled.
Exactly. So,
but maybe we have to.
Chris,
maybe we have to search to look for examples of what we consider eclectic leadership, or for a big deal eclectic leadership, which is already done now, and show that as examples for people that want to know something more. And of course, it has to be adjusted to certain kind of situations. But for instance, maybe if you follow education a little bit, you probably see and you will have read that the most the best children in learning, but also the most happiest children in school, are in Finland. And why Finland? In Finland, they give the teacher, the only thing the teacher has to do with his class is reach some goals at the end of the year. There are no tests, there is no homework, there is a lot of hours playing outside and playing music, and it's up to the teacher because he's the leader and he knows how to get them there.
Right.
And if he needs books, he takes books. If he doesn't need books, he doesn't use books. Yeah. So, and these children are the best children in the world. And not the children here in Thailand that go 28 hours to school and if they don't learn, they get punished because they learn nothing, basically. They have to. Yeah, the structure and the book, and it's book open, page number 10, and there we go. And another example about, let's say, a municipality I heard, but I'm not sure. In Iceland, some cities rule the mayor. So they have, let's say, 4 or 5 parties in the council, and the head of the party is mayor for 1 or 2 years, and then it goes to the next one.
Yeah.
There is in one city, there's an anarchist party with a lot of seats. The guy from the anarchist party should be the mayor for 1 year. A lot of people thought that's going wrong, that guy, because he doesn't want to do anything. He has no rules. He's an anarchist.
Yeah.
He became mayor, and he solved problems in 1 year. Which means the image of an anarchist being the one that is not going to solve problem or is against everything and doesn't want to have rules and whatever. Sometimes no rules are okay. Sometimes we have too many rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
So skipping rules might be a really good solution to some things.
So in the backdrop of this last portion of our discussion is I think the third foundation of eclectic leadership, which is political science. That the moment, so the first one is all about language in a voice. We spoke about what you're saying to others. Then comes psychology, how you feel your emotions and how you understand others' emotion, your impact, the impact of your words on others. So the moment you start to collaborate, you start to work in a team, family, community, it becomes political. And I think Anupamda also said that we are by nature very political beings as well. So we cannot ignore the importance of political science. But in a normal sense, what I mean by political science is persuasion, influence, cohesion, collaboration, the power balance in a positive way. I think we need to consciously accept the fact those days are gone if we say that we don't like politics, or I don't like politics, I don't like politicians. When your own gas prices are going up now, as we speak now, you really need to take note and start asking the tough questions: that why is it happening? Where is the money moving? Where are the chips going from which country to what country? What is petrodollars impacting my school run cost, etc., etc.? How do we simplify all of these things and share it with a 20-year-old to a 40-year-old, and how we help them grow is, I think, also part of being an eclectic leader. We cannot ignore the importance of politics, policies, who we are being policed all the time, all of these things. So any reflections on this third foundation of eclectic leadership or not from yourselves?
Anyone here?
Yes, I would like to input on that point. How I
Yeah.
see these things. I learned about leadership when I started my career. So when I start applying leadership, what the first things come to my things that if I wanted to be leader, if I want to be a leader, then I need to follow someone. So at that time, from my unconscious mind, I used to follow the political leader because my knowledge was so narrow at that time in 2011 or 2013 that leadership means someone need to be or someone need to follow the political character in corporate life. So at that time, when I was looking for some good leader, I found that those voices are very much loud. Just using loud voice means good leaders. So I started my career in RMG industry. I applied this technique, but somehow it works. After 5 to 6 years, I understand that leadership doesn't mean being loud. Leadership doesn't mean being autocratic. Leadership doesn't mean being rude. But I used to follow this because I was following some political leaders. But later, when I was pursuing my master's degree in business administration, I dig down a little bit more about leadership. Then I understand that it's not about what I have practiced, but when I learn the leadership techniques, I also learned it in my graduation but I have not followed these things. What I follow, I follow the character of the political leader into my organization, but somehow it works. And then when I learn about different leadership style, autocratic style, or many leadership style, then now I can shape it whatever it requires in every situation. Because as a employee or as a professional in R&D industry, sometimes I have to work with different stakeholders. Sometimes I have to work with workers. Sometimes I have to work with owners. Sometimes I have to work with middlemen. Sorry. Sometimes I have to work with buyers. Sometimes I have to work with politicians also. So my previous wrong way of practicing leadership and later learning the leadership in proper manner and blending of all of them, it works. Sorry. So from today's session, I understand that eclectic leadership, from my point of view, is similar like that I am practicing. I might be wrong. I might be right also. So I believe this. I believe I am also okay with Krish that he said some of the things that there is no right or wrong things.
Yeah.
So now I can take the decision from my previous experience. Okay, this is the things that I have practiced. Maybe I was wrong, but somehow it worked. Now I understand what is the actual leadership mean, how it should be done. Now I have the opportunity to blend everything and to apply whatever it requires in which way.
Yeah.
So the eclectic leadership will also help me after understanding today's session to practice it, to apply it in my work, not in my work, also in my family, the society I live in, and in my entire life.
Yeah, you mentioned, Shamia, the keyword, that blend.
Yeah.
You know, we tend to use it very instinctively that, oh, we need to blend it. But that is exactly what I think we're trying to get better at with eclectic leadership, that the four foundations of linguistic psychology, political science, and we look at pan-cultural wisdom of leadership from West, East. It could be principle-based, Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Judaism, and indigenous sources of leadership wisdom as well. But how do you blend it all together so you don't cherry pick? You do it like a bit like driving a car. When you become really good at driving, you subconsciously know what to do. You know that navigates the road. And this is something beyond a corporate training or a coaching on a certain only one way of looking at things. So you said the right keyword, blend, in the last 15 minutes, and I'm really grateful that you mentioned that word. We also mentioned integrate, blend, mix it in a cohesive way. And as you said, it's as long as it's working for you, you are already an eclectic leader. So you don't need a prescription. You can only help others grow as well. So we have, guys, 10 minutes or so left. Any last concluding, reflecting comments from anybody?
Right.
Yeah.
Anthony?
Oh, Anthony, you want to go? Yeah, please.
No. Sorry. My mistake.
Oh, so for me, politics is everywhere. It's at home. And when you also look at how our parents manage resources and for whom, how, that's also politics, right? Because ultimately, even though we tend to see that, parents love all children equally, but, you see that among siblings, there is always rivalry, who gets, how much attention from which parents. So that's also politics, and so therefore, I think, what matters is that, how we manage our resources and for whom. And for me, my understanding of eclectic leadership is all about planet, people, and profit. Because if there is no planet, there is no people, and that interdependence of planet and people must be restored. In the name of profit, and profit, we are destroying ourselves and the planet. So therefore, how, and when you say planet, it's both living and non-living creatures and elements. How we really manage those resources is, again, going back to this egocentric versus ecocentric thing. How we are managing, and whether we are managing it equitably, or just holding it, for our own interest, would also determine what the nature of politics is.
Yeah. Excellent. Anybody, any questions? Did I see any raised hands? Great.
I mean,
Okay.
can I make a comment? Sorry, I had to drop out for a bit. I had problems with my Wi-Fi. I mean, I still think a lot of what I've heard about the definition of leadership is still white man's poison. I really do. The leadership is still looked at superiority based on God knows what. Somehow, I think we have to come up with a completely new and utterly way of looking at leadership. Leadership is humility. Leadership is making people feel they're relevant and their contribution matters. It's none of this bollocks that's being taught at universities or anywhere else. It is, how do we make people realize they are human? We have led ourselves for thousands and thousands of generations, and it's still going on in the East and in Asia and other places where community is still the values that define us by how we contribute. All of this white man's out of America bollocks is just a waste of time. And until we actually want to step up, stand up, and say we disapprove of all of those values, and we actually want to be human and contribute as we've always done around our fires and who we are, we're just wasting our time. The time has come to be humble and realize authority is through humility. It's not around this knowledge. Everybody has the same knowledge. Everybody has AI. Everybody has this. Let us finally take people back to being humans. What are we hunting, protecting, and growing in our lives? How do we help people fulfill their potential to hunt for vision, to hunt for life, to hunt for respect, to hunt for love? What do we have to grow? What do we have to grow? Those skills, those values. And how do we have to live our lives? What do we protect? And honestly, all of this generic stuff about leadership to me and what's discussed, it's white man's poison. It's got us to where we are today. And we need to rethink what is leadership and what is responsibility in our community. So forgive me saying all that. I just hope to some of you it made sense. I mean, honestly, you come from cultures, all of you, that are thousands of years old.
Yeah.
You've led your lives. You come from cultures where respect, responsibility, and courage are a given. You join communities where relevance is a given. We don't know what it means. We've lost it. We've been subjugated to this entire colonial system. I know it. I've got 8 generations behind it. I know how it's manipulated. That's not leadership. That is manipulation. And that's what is still being taught at schools, universities, and everything else. Let us break it and let us do something that is based on the core human values.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anthony. I think that's the kind of befitting conclusion that we needed to leave this inaugural session. Anybody want to share more on what Anthony said, or any reflections, thoughts, next steps?
Can you enable the screen sharing option? I just wanted to play a small video, if that's okay, that actually summarizes many of the things that we've been talking about.
Let me check.
Maybe I can share the link with you if you can play that yourself.
Or one option might be, if you share the link with me, maybe I could send it as the pack to everybody as an email. Is that okay?
You can play it here, right? From your end.
Let me also make you. Can you do that? Yes, go on. Did you share that on the chat?
Yeah, let me just do that. It's a reel from a Facebook, but it will be probably very interesting for all of us to also see how kids, we've been talking about kids, and how they really make they have their understanding of the world is very different from ours.
Let me open it on my phone. Okay, now I need to see I can see it on my phone. I'm not sure how to. Let me check. How do I share the screen?
If Nikhil is also a co-host, Nikhil, you can also play that, right? Sure.
Yes, sir. I think if you can share the link.
It's
there. It's there in the chat.
So I've got 2 devices here, and I'm mostly on the phone. Okay. Let me see. I think I might be getting there.
When you play, share the sound also, because there's play.
Right. Can you see now?
Yeah, yeah.
কাটা তার ছিড়বে যখন মন রে আমার গাইব তোমার গান শেফালি ফুলের পাতা হলুদ হলি বিবর্ণ এই প্রাণ আধারের রং যদি হয় সাদা আধারের রং যদি হয় সাদা কাটা তার ছিড়বে যখন মন রে আমার গাইব তোমার গান শেফালি ফুলের পাতা হলুদ হলি বিবর্ণ এই প্রাণ আধারের রং যদি হয় সাদা আধারের রং যদি হয় সাদা কাটা তার ছিড়বে কাটা তার ছিড়বে
Right. Okay.
I think that's what eclectic leadership for me.
Can you hear? Okay, Anupamna, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right. So do you mean eclectic leadership is more like childhood? It's innocence. How do you?
It's ethical. It is ethical. Innocence, ethics is part of that, right? When you lose ethics, then there is no eclectic leadership.
Correct. Got it. Fantastic. I think that's such a yes, go on.
Innocence is also part of it, of course, you can be strategic, all those things, but ultimately, whether if you do not have planet, people, and profit in mind, I don't think, we'll be able to sustain.
Makes sense. Well, thank you very much, Anupamda. That was a lovely, lovely clip. And with that, friends, we have come to the end of this inaugural session. Now, I wanted to confirm that this is just a very beginning of what we wanted to do and engage with you to co-design eclectic leadership. And I apologize again for the tech glitches in the beginning, talking about broken systems, and it had to break today itself. But where do we go from here now is we want to continue the conversation with yourselves. So we have our group of advisors and we want to continue with this. So from now, every month, we want to have a half an hour, 40 minutes drop-in sessions to talk about specific things. And that will be open to everybody. We'll do all the promotions, the links that are required. That will not be a 3-hour conference every month. A half an hour, 40 minutes, very focused. We'll try to share the agenda where needed, where anybody can come in, share their thoughts, and we can try to help each other to grow forward. And that will be number one. So every month. And whether or not we should have something similar like today, another online conference in the next quarter, or a physical conference somewhere in the world, that would be a fantastic thing to see you all. We will be considering that, and we are open to your input. And some of our friends and advisors have prepared some presentations with their expertise. So we'll send you a PDF with that and some references that we have made to some books. The work from Sarah, for example, will also email all of that to you as well. So other than that, if you are already on LinkedIn or any other social media platform, email, please feel free to stay in touch with ourselves individually. Everything doesn't have to go through by myself or anybody specific. You're free to reach out to anybody that you fancy. So with that note, again, I wanted to thank you very much once again for being part of the Eclectic Leadership movement, for playing this important role in co-designing what we are trying to do. It's pretty unique and it's going to take some time. So any questions, comments, how can we improve ourselves later, please let us know, drop an email. And I really want to thank you again for your time. Have a great, great weekend, everybody. Thank you very much.